and the self, archetypes, Jungian therapy, individuation, alchemy, all Carl Jung as we can fit in a little bit of time. Jungian analysis is a process that helps people make sense of what they think, feel, and behave. Very important. And it's a type of psychotherapy that is based on the theories of Carl Jung, the father of psychoanalysis. There are things happening on my desktop here. There are 4 states in Jungian analysis: assessment, clarification, integration, and realization. And these stages are also very similar to Ericksonian therapy. But the most dramatic contribution that Jung made to psychodynamic thought was his concept of the collective unconscious, which can be thought of as a structure of the unconscious mind, which are shared among people, or patterns and reactions in the mind that all people have in common across the world. Archetypes and alchemy, alchemy and symbolism are central to Carl Jung's research in psychology. And Carl Jung is probably one of the first person, well, actually it's not, because William James talked about the self extensively, and then Carl Rogers as well. But Carl Jung presented the archetype of the self in a wholesome formula as to how we get the self to become whole, repaired, healed, and balanced and individuated. So in this formula of, let me see if I can bring it on a screen. In this formula of Carl Jung's individuation, part of the self, we have the persona, the way we present ourselves to the world, to home, to work, to our kitty cats and puppy dogs, relationship, neighbors, grocery stores, and so on. And then we have the anima animus, which is that sacred part of who we are, is that connection that we have with our soul, that very deep connection that we have, and that represents the true self, which we don't necessarily access or present ourselves with up until we do some personal growth and spiritual growth and healing and individuation. Shadow, Carl Jung is probably the first person to bring in shadow work, which is part of the self, and it's kept in a shadow. And anything we don't like about ourselves and about others too, things that bothers us so much about other people, we need to look inside and see what is it about us that we are so bothered by whatever we are bothered by.
Hypnosis can help a lot as well, kind of getting into some of those deeper issues. And I find as well, when you talk to people, let them open up a little bit about their own ideas as you work through things symbolically. It can make those shadow elements less scary, less conflicting for people to talk about. And once you expose the shadow, that's I think the primary process of individuation, of really growing as a person. So always something I'm trying to work with clients as well. But I didn't mean to cut you off. What was I going to say?
Yeah, you are correct. I often say that if a therapeutic intervention does not arrive to the self, that therapeutic intervention hasn't completed yet. In my understanding of the various modalities of therapy nowadays in the world, every single therapy seeks to address the self. And we can see that the self is complex. It's not as simple as I am female, my name is that, I have a title, I reside here, I was born here, and so on. That's not as simple as that.
Even harder, like what the reason I love to talk about shadow work and the shadow in particular is because one of the things Carl Jung taught me probably first is that not only everything that we think we are is part of who we are, but literally the opposite of who we are is still part of who we are. All of those polarities in life, like, oh, no, I'm an honest person and dishonesty is bad. That's literally true. I am angry at dishonesty in particular. So hard for me to accept, but when I can accept that dishonesty is also a part of who I am, and that's why I have such a strong reaction to it and come to love that part, I can grow as a person. And that's like why so much of shadow work is about where it's at. But hypnosis also can help to lower that same critical boundary so that we're not so quick to judge ourselves and create a negative emotion around facing
you are correct, but what I want to touch up on is that dishonesty that bothers us, and other people that keep lying to us. They make promises and they break promises, and becomes when people lie too much, they become non-reliable, especially if they're close by. We can that part of dishonesty that we find in our shadow might not be the same dishonesty that other people.
Oh, in fact, hilariously, Carmen, I'm almost meant to ask you, has someone broken promises to you? Because to me, those are two separate issues. Dishonesty is about, your word, whereas promises to you is more about that personal commitments that someone's made to you. And that those are obviously related, but not necessarily at all. That was not the kind of dishonesty that I was personally thinking.
Okay, well, I was putting them
that's not the kind of dishonesty that I was thinking of making me angry.
Oh,
exactly that. We had a little bit different ideas of what we're talking about when we think about dishonesty.
Well, right in this moment, yeah, but not overall, not at all overall. I grew up in Romania, and dishonesty was a way of life. I grew up under the communist regime, and you had to be dishonest with those higher ups, tell them that you agree with. If so, you had to lie. So that's a lie in itself, right? So there are white lies, there are bad lies, there are black lies, there are all kind of lies. There's breaking commitments, yeah, and so on. Randy, what's your take on? Now we're talking about
shadows.
Yeah.
About lie? My take on lying? I'm against it.
Can you embrace your inner liar, though, Randy?
I'll vote against it.
And give him a hug.
There may be a lie. There may be a lie, just that what I just said. The thing that I'm just asking more than saying, the reason this is interesting and challenging is because these concepts are unconscious, subconscious, or unconscious. So that if we say, well, gee, Randy, if lying upsets you, deep down, there's a liar inside you. There's no way I'm going to accept that because it's too subconscious, right? I mean, isn't that the challenge?
To some degree it is, but what I want to specify, I don't know how we got to this topic, but what I want to specify is that people that have individuated, people that have done so much growth within themselves, people that have integrated the self to a large degree, let's give it an 85%, this becomes a standard. I do not lie to myself. I do not like certain things. I agree that I don't like certain things, but I do not lie to myself. Do I use white lies? Well, yeah, because they are uplifting others. Yeah. Do I use white lies with my kitty cat when I have to medicate him? Well, yeah.
this is not about justification or being right and wrong. I'm just saying like that. That's actually the benefit of going to the shadow work, is because like you go like, okay, you know, we always want to make ourselves right and others wrong. And that's the way in which I'm a really scrupulously honest person. That's why I have such anger at the idea of liars, right? But understanding as well that even those things that we despise, those things we reject most, we were taught to despise and reject. And those are parts of us in the world that also really only get diffused, that only lose their power when we learn to love them. Even as they are. No, not even reject even what is hardest for us to reject. That's why I say there's no end to the growth you can get. And that's why when you say individuated people, I was like, oh, we all fall short of the glory of God, Carmen. We're all a little bit shy of where we could be.
Yeah,
I don't think that's a problem. I think that's a strength.
that is correct. Oh, okay, we are live right now.
This has to learn to keep pushing the rock up the hill and learn to love it. It's the only way to get himself out of Tartarus.
Yes, you are correct. You are correct. Shadow work is probably one of the most important work that we can do. And if we attempt to do personal growth and development and all kinds of growth, I don't see how that is going to happen without shadow work. And I don't see how this is going to happen without the sacred. There are so many because religion has taken such a turn into living an imprint of shame and guilt on the practitioners and the parishioners and those religious people that follow a religion, that has put such a weight on the shadow, created more of what we don't like and what we despise about ourselves and others too. But it took away the access to the sacred and the importance of working with the sacred, because religion attempts to bring you closer to the sacred, but there's so many religions that they actually take you away. They don't do a good job at it. They just don't do a good job at it. Indigenous people, though, if you look at indigenous people, if you look at the humanity before civilizations, before even agriculture, these people were just so in touch with the sacredness of life, of themselves, of the planet Earth. And to think that some religious encourage to or discourage respecting the planet Earth, it's quite absurd, because if the planet Earth is that which gives us food and nourishment, we can't survive without food. So to have a religion that discourages that, it's a bit absurd. But the sacred,
What's your thought, Carmen? What's the best way to get the sacred into people's lives?
yeah, no, it is.
Sorry, you stopped on my screen and then kept talking.
It's good because me and Randy, we touched up on it a lot. And I remember having, not long ago, I had some conversation with some acquaintances, and they asked me, what do I do? And in a short explanation, I said, I repair the souls of people that religion, to where this was said in Romanian, to and I'm not translating very well, to where religion breaks their soul and gets them into shame and guilt. I repair their soul. So how do I take that to a religious leader? Well, I'm not interested, and we're that's besides the point. So shadow.
That's actually where I was with that. Do you feel it should be through
Absolutely
religion
not.
explicitly?
No, I don't think.
Because that's just it. Like, my experience of the sacred is much more fundamentally advanced when I run drum circles, for example, amongst other things. I'm able to get people dancing and out of their egos and into that flow state of the moment, which I think is the essence of kind of touching the sacred. Which I feel like, most religious ceremonies have gotten so far away from, and many indigenous ceremonies we're much more in tune with. Dance, move, let your mind go, and so that you can experience
in the body. but there's so many. How are we talking about religion? but there's so many.
As you mentioned the sacred, and I'm really curious about the importance of the sacred in human life. That's why I have to ask questions.
It is.
Sorry.
I mean, you cannot become whole if you don't get in touch with your sacred. But there are so many religious. The religion, most of it plays. Well, I'm going to talk about what I know. Religion plays such a significant role in having people stay away from the sacred by having them feel guilty and ashamed of their human characteristics. There is a way to do things, there is a right way and a wrong way to do things. And I think throughout life, throughout civilization, in order to keep the less knowledgeable, I would think, into the right pattern, all of these rules were imposed. I don't want to go too much into religion. To me, what is important to me, it's important than the human that I'm helping and the human I'm surrounded by know that access to the sacred, it's the utmost important. And without access to that, you'd lose a lot. And there's a lot of people that even if they don't do a lot of shadow work, by them having access to the sacredness, a lot of the shadow work will work itself out only by the work that they place on their sacredness. That can be drum circle, that can be dancing, that can be shamanism, that can be community work, that can be all kinds of different approaches to get to the sacred. But what perplexes me a little bit is that I see a good amount of practitioners that do not quite understand the teaching of the Inner-Alchemy and the archetypes of Carl Jung. Carl Jung was, when did he die? 1960, 1970, something like that. So it's not that long ago that Carl Jung contribution to psychology is enormous. Psychology wouldn't be what it is without Carl Jung. But some.
Neither would.
Unfortunately, he didn't make it easy for anybody.
He didn't make it what?
Neither were the movies.
He didn't make it easy for anybody. How can I say this? When you look at symbolism like Jung, you realize it becomes kind of hopelessly individualized. That is to say, because so much of the symbolism, when we can talk about archetypes, it's easy because we're talking about something that's the same for everybody. But once we get past that into the individual symbolism that our clients are experiencing a problem with, it's really hard because what might symbolize one problem to me might be a whole different symbol to you. If you had a problem, for me, a red ball might mean fun, whereas for you, a red ball might mean what hit you in the head in gym class and might be a whole traumatic issue, right? We have totally different emotional reactions to the same kind of symbol.
But that's why symbolism is important. That's why it's important to understand Carl Jung's work.
That's the problem. If you try to teach symbolism and the symbol red ball could mean fun times with mom and dad or trauma in gym class, it's hard to figure out without talking individually to individual people about what different symbols mean to them, how to figure out the symbolism.
Yes.
All too often people want to have here are all the symbols in your dreams and you just read dreams like a book. Unfortunately, because our symbols are so individually derived, it becomes really challenging to figure out the particular symbols that are relevant to our clients. The only way to do it is by talking to them and going through a lot of stuff. I like to kind of walk them through stuff where you do a little bit of semi-conscious work. You're talking to them where they're visualizing through something and you kind of see what the subconscious comes up with. It's amazing if you're visualizing yourself walking down a road and I say you see a person, the details of that person are going to come right out of your subconscious and probably relate to whatever we prime you with before we go walking down that road in your mind. Therefore, I believe, we can explore. The reason my symbols, I say, when I was talking earlier with you guys about storytelling, it's so powerful when I can explore who their symbols first by talking with them through a kind of Jungian analysis, going through a house or a road or something in their minds, so that I can get their symbols. And then when we want to do some change work, we can then feed those back to them in a powerful way. Because our symbols are individual, even though once we get out of the basic archetypes, it becomes the Wild West.
You are correct. And this is what extended hypnosis comes with, tailoring and utilization, because we're all so different. And this is what makes humanity beautiful. If we were to be alike, we would probably get bored really quickly. But individuality, yes, it's very important. And those unconscious processes, they play such a key role into how we think, feel, and behave.
Right, but it's so easy and nicely logical to do something like parts in negotiation, right? Where we locate the part, we create a signal, and we convince it to do something else. It's a nice logical process. It's so much harder to write about. We discover their metaphors that they're using in their heads to symbolize their problem, and then overcome those metaphors in a journey. It's harder to write about that in a way that makes like specific sense to people. It's such an intuitive and almost artistic process as a therapist that I think a lot of trainers shy away from.
You are correct. And I was talking to Randy earlier that there's so many practitioners that are taught certain skills in certain ways, a certain box, and they just stick with the box and not a whole lot of creativity to add their own sauce. And that's something to me, I forget something like that exists. But Randy has been in the industry for over 40 years. So maybe Randy can shed some light as to why some practitioners don't add their.
What's your secret sauce, Randy?
Why some practitioners don't use Jungian approaches much more? My guess, I'm not sure. My guess is that it's a longer process. It's not problem solving. The industry changed a lot back when cognitive behavioral therapy came along, and Aaron Beck and all of them. And even before him, there was what was it? Oh, rational emotive therapy, all that. Very short term, 6 sessions or less kind of thing. And I remember when that was a big revolution. I'm old enough to remember that. I remember when, psychotherapy was considered to be a long-term thing, but now it's changed. So, and I think like Adam was saying, it's very, very complex. It's more, it's not something that's easily taught because everyone's different. You can't teach how to approach every individual differently in the sense that people are different. So I'm not saying that right, but anyway, it's hard to me. It seems like it's harder to teach because it focuses a lot on the individual, and there's a lot of what a therapist would do has to do with who that individual is and what their metaphors are and that kind of thing. So it's, to me, however, having said all that, I think the shadow work seems very teachable and very utilitarian, if I could say that word, and useful. And why that's not used more, I don't know. I tell you my theory. This is just my theory. The little bit I know about Jungian stuff, to be a good Jungian therapist, a person has to be willing to know themselves very well. They're good, bad, and ugly, especially the ugly. And like Adam was saying, have to embrace it and love it. And a lot of therapists aren't like that. They're not that self-aware. And they're not to the point that they want to become more self-aware. And the reason I say that is I supervise a lot of social workers who do in therapy, and it is a very rare social worker. In my experience, I've supervised probably 30. I would say out of that, 2 actually had some question about why they were doing things. Why did they think this? I can't stand this client. Wonder why that is. This client I love, I enjoy. I wonder why that is. Um, they have no desire to know that. What their desire is to know is, how can I keep from being sued, and how can I start a private practice? That was their number. So I'm just basing my things on my little bitty tiny world, but that's my guess on why it's not as popular.
That sounds dissociated, Randy.
It
Like they're trying to move their hearts away from the work.
to
Yeah,
me and you.
and it wasn't everybody. Everyone was different, but it was just a rare supervisee that wanted to explore themselves and why they were motivated to think certain ways about a client. They just were rare. Most of them came in saying, "Yeah, I had this guy come in, and I did this, and that's it." And supervision is supposed to last an hour. What, right, Randy? Well, we've got 60 minutes, 55 minutes left. What do we talk about? And that was not unusual. And I don't. But that's the social work world. It's a lot different in the psychology world and in the other therapy world. Psychiatry goes a lot differently. That's just my little limited experience.
But what perplexes me, thank you for that, Randy. What perplexes me is as someone who goes into the psychotherapy, psychology, personal development type of the world, people helpers, right? Into more of a medical and alternative people helper. Do they not go in there so they get to know more about themselves and how to become more wholesome, or a lot of them?
In my
I think that
experience,
no. Well,
I had,
I'm
and I'll get not my experience. I mean, I had one guy. He was out of school for about a year and a half, and you're supposed to get 2 years of supervision, and he'd gotten maybe a year or so, without going into the details about it. He had the opportunity to start a private practice, which in social work you can't do until you're licensed. That's to protect the public. And he hated that law. He spent a lot of his time with me. Are there ways to work around that? How can I get it around to where I can start seeing people as a therapist before he was licensed, a year out of school, and he was like 24. And it was a real difficult supervision because I was like, in my mind, I was like, that's that's a very dangerous way to see yourself. That I know enough at 24 to do private practice, and
So,
so
Randy, let me understand. Doesn't he stand to make a lot more money in
it
private
sure
practice?
does. And it's just more,
I'm saying, like the system is literally set up to kind of push him that way.
and it's more prestigious.
As far as I understand, the way
It's
social work
more
works.
prestigious. You get your own office, and people come, and yeah, it's a very, very strong draw, until you get into it and realize it's not.
Honestly, social work seems like really hard
Uh,
work to me, whereas psychotherapy seems almost like a dream work to me. So I'm sitting here like, I don't want to kid you, Randy. If I was a social worker under you, I'd be planning my private practice.
well, it's okay it would be okay to plan it. What I'm
Yeah.
saying is that he was typical.
I get it. I get it. I would be leaning that direction with all my behavior, and that's why I can understand what your student did or your supervisee
Oh yeah,
did
and
there.
I would support people going into it if they had supervision to do like what I think a Jungian therapist would want to know is just more about themselves. What is motivating them? And um, yeah, and it was a lot of my people that I supervised. They didn't have a good theory. Um, they thought that just talking to people would help. Carl Rogers promoted that idea. If you just kind of reflective listen back, people get better. And so anyway, yeah, there was a lot of attraction to it, but there's also the need to, and I come from the world. I got 2 years of supervision. Then I paid out of my, which was out of my employment. I paid out of my pocket for 2 years more of supervision. Then I got trained for 5 years at the Family Therapy Institute, all out of pocket. So I'm a big believer in doing that. So I'm biased on that end of the scale.
All right. All right. So it is my understanding that also Carl Jung's Inner-Alchemy, especially working with the self, brings a lot of personal healing. And as you said earlier, both of you, is that a lot of people, including practitioners, are not willing to do that kind of work. They're not willing to understand how to apply Jung's teaching of the self. I mostly want to touch up on the shadow and the sacredness, the anima animus, because people need to confront their own unresolved issues and to embark on their own healing journeys. And to see that a lot of practitioners look down and portray it down the spiritual growth and spiritual healing, it saddens me very much, because in 20, 30 years, in the past 20, 30 years at least, that I know, spiritual healing has gotten such, has grown so much, has liberated so many people from the guilt and the shame that the religion offered to them. And when you as a human begin to be more integrated and more connected with your unresolved issues and working to resolve them, or at least accept them for what they are, and embrace and work with the sacredness. If everybody would do this, there would just be, at least if 80% of people would do this, we would have more peace on earth. It would just be beautiful. But a lot of practitioners, they don't even recommend spiritual healing and spiritual growth. They call it woo-woo. And even hypnosis, which goes so quickly to the root of the problem without re-traumatizing, because we don't re-traumatize, at least 99% of the hypnotists that I hope so, we don't traumatize, still look at it as a woo-woo. And I thought that my culture is skeptical about hypnosis, to hear that even Americans are a bit skeptical about hypnosis, but it's interesting to find out that hypnosis was there before psychology developed into a field. Psychology, before it developed into a health field, used to be philosophy. And
I'm actually I'm a step harder core than that. I trace the beginning of hypnosis to the sleep temples of Hathor. That is to say, roughly 2500 BC, ancient Egypt, they were literally experimenting with different kinds of sound technologies and chantings to send people into healing sleeps. And I'm like, wait, healing sleeps? This is what I'm doing. This is what I'm trying to do.
Yes, because that induces all of those sounds that it would induce, and it would stimulate the brain to produce a particular brain wave, lower theta and delta. And nowadays, in such a civilized and fast-moving world, when we sleep, we don't produce enough delta brain waves. And it would make sense that in those sleep temples, they would use chanting and sound to healing. When we produce more delta brain waves, a lot of more repair happens in a physical body. And of course, you sleep better. And if you sleep better and you're rested, then there's not a whole lot of shadow you need to wrestle against. Yeah.
And
so
delta is just a relatively fast beat. So delta is around 4 hertz. And 4 hertz, I'm a musician, sorry, is literally just a relatively fast beat. So if you have a kind of nice, like fast beat, repetitive music, and you bring it down a little bit and bring it down a little bit, it's kind of naturally relaxing. Mm-hmm. And what we were using in the Hathor temples anyway, is very like a tambourine. It has that same kind of which is a great way to put yourself in a natural alpha first so that you're mellow and then all the way down.
Yes.
So I
Yes.
have found that, like, when you get all the way down to delta, I mean, your body is repairing itself, but that's where you really you have dream sleep.
Yes.
You're all the way down.
Yes. Yeah.
Hypnosis, I find most effective in that theta range. You're a little below
Correct.
alpha. You get down around that 7 hertz range. That's the sweet spot when I find you're most hypnotic.
Correct. Yes, correct. Very, very relaxed and focused attention without all of the distraction of the stimuli surrounding you.
Maybe. Or maybe it's that we get to the right Schumann resonance, because I find it's curiously close to 7.83 hertz, which is the resonant frequency.
That has been changing lately.
When your brain finally gets to the same resonant frequency as the Earth, suddenly we're in a better state. Oh, wait, what happened?
Yes, we are, but even Schumann resonance has been changing lately. Science has found so many big spikes and such a deviation from the 7 hertz, and then no wonder a lot of people experience chaos and anxiety and stress and turmoil, and they're not aware that what's happening and that they are influenced by it. And also so many solar flares that are producing a lot of solar storm that are affecting our atmosphere, not to mention so much technology out there in the atmosphere that is disrupting what needs to be.
It's funny you mentioned the things that I talk with astrology friends. I'm not a huge fan of astrology, but I always notice, because I am a huge fan of, like, actual stars. So when there are a lot of solar flares, I'll talk with people and be like, oh yeah, we've definitely noticed. I'm like, this is what I can easily see when we're magnetic beings, and our consciousness is a magnetic phenomenon. So when we're having waves of magnetism thrown at us, that seems much more likely to upset human behavior and larger human behavior patterns than whether Mercury is going retrograde or not, which is what I commonly have arguments with my astrology friends about. Like, Mercury can go retrograde over and over again for years. That's not a big deal.
It happens every so often, but solar flares, they're not on a pattern.
Right.
Yeah, and then yes, I make a point to keep up with the space weather and notify people when it happens and remind them that they are going to be affected emotionally, physically, and emotionally affected. And even full moon. I'm sorry?
You ever go up north to see? I've been meaning to go up to Iceland to see the northern lights for a really long time. That's why, to me, that's the space weather. You're literally seeing the ions flow in when you're looking out.
I have not been there. Have you?
No, it's on my bucket list.
Okay.
To sit in a nice natural hot spring in Iceland and watch the northern lights come down.
Okay, I'll send you to spaceweather.com.
Off of Jung now, so we should probably get back.
You can go to spaceweather.com and they show up. They capture a lot of pictures from the northern lights. Yeah,
it's the easiest way to photograph it. So that's easy pickings.
Yeah. And it's interesting that this happened.
And I can only imagine, getting back to the spirit, that I can only imagine what effect that would have on people in the early days when they see literal explosions of fireworks happening in the sky on a regular basis. How can you not believe that up north was some sort of Asgard of some sort? I don't know. It's the way I always think of it. You're like, the further north I go, the more random colors explode in the sky at night. That's got to be an interesting phenomenon to go to.
Yeah.
So many things that I think would inspire belief in the divine.
Yes. And that needs to be, it has been reviving for the past few decades, with more and more people becoming more spiritually oriented, integrating that in their being and their behavior, as opposed to conforming to still respecting the rules, but not completely conforming and staying in those boxes, being so.
Are you ready to be that shamanist?
I'm sorry?
Are you ready to be that shamanist, Carmen?
Not live.
Sure.
Not live. We do it private because it's a bit more sacred. But I guess we could delve a little deeper in shamanism, some other podcasts, but not today. But Carl Jung, I look at Carl Jung as having been a shaman because he has had shamanic like experiences. I also look at Milton Erickson to have been a shaman. I also look at William James to have been a shaman. And these are such big figures in the evolution of psychotherapy and the evolution of helping people get better into their mental and emotional health. So it is sad to see that, especially in Europe, although shamanism has such a strong roots in Europe, but ever since the Roman Empire and what the Roman Empire brought over to Europe and made happen in Europe, shamanism slowly started to die, and it is so poorly portrayed as being some sort of woo-woo, which in its core is just a deep respect for all that is, being connected to the sacredness of you, of others, of beings, of everything that is. Um,
But you're removing all the attractive woo-woo.
yeah. So, but also they do say they don't spread your pearls and don't give your pearls to the pigs. Or what's the correct English saying?
Spread
Oh,
pearls
okay,
before
yeah, yeah,
swine.
there you go.
I
So
believe
it's
that.
the fact of the matter is not everybody is ready to connect to the sacred at a very deeper level.
Are you sure?
We are,
I
but
think we
actually,
all are.
to me, it's not actually deep.
Most people call them concerts and stuff like that, but I think we're all about ready to go ahead and let go of our egos and experience this moment as spirits. It's just a matter of getting beyond whatever we're doing at the
I
Ready?
have a
time.
question about that. I
Yeah,
have a question about that that came up, and I just was curious and what y'all's viewpoint is. This is a very unanswerable question, but here's what I've struggled with that because I've been taking some meditative practices that say exactly what y'all are saying. There's a common, unspeakable kind of humanity that exists within us all, and that should be able to get in touch with that no matter who we are. Everyone has it. It's a shared type of humanity that we all have. And one of the things that gets in the way of that is the ego. We've got to let go of our ego to do it. So here's what my simple mind says. Well, why do we have an ego? If the ego's bad and we have to let it go and get past it, why were we given an ego? If
I'm going to
there's a
answer that.
transcendent, if there's a transcendent spiritual being who
Mhm,
created
mhm.
13 billion trillion stars, which is a lot of stars, if that person is, if there's an entity, or if there's if there's something going on, and I believe that there is, and we have to transcend our ego to get to it, well, why in the hell do we have an ego?
I'm going to answer that. Okay, so ego. Okay, ego has gotten a bad rap altogether, and we've talked about the ego before. Especially William James brings such a beautiful light over the ego. The ego is there to protect the persona part of the self from negative images. So because persona needs to have a status, needs to be recognized, it needs to be all right, I'm going to go different direction. So
But why? Why do we have the persona?
okay, okay,
I
let
mean,
me
why?
let me get to it. Let me get to it. So it's part of the self. So persona needs to be shielded and doesn't like to be hurt. All of the hurt is gonna go sit in a shadow. So if you think of the ego as being your skin, why do you need skin? Well, without skin, we would look quite different. We wouldn't be as pretty. So ego is the protector. Now, what the spiritual world has done with the ego, and maybe it's not the spiritual world, who knows what has before then has happened, has made the ego to be the bad guy. What the ego is in its truth is that part of the dreaded self, which is part of the shadow. So the role of the ego is to protect the persona, and then transcending the ego actually means individuating, right? Transcending the ego, it's two worlds that you bring the puzzle of Carl Jung archetypes will sell all the four pieces of the puzzle you bring in together to transcend the ego. So when people throw around the ego this, ego that, I kind of, and then also.
This is good, Carmen. Though I'll say, like, to me, it's easier than that. Like, we don't. It's situational. That is to say, if what I'm trying to do is be at one with my spirit, then the ego is only an impediment. But if what I'm trying to do is construct a sentence to communicate to you, Randy, the ego is the only thing I got. My spirit can't construct a sentence. My spirit doesn't have that capacity. My spirit lives in it. It lives in fact, the dimension around me that is not, in fact, it's not verbal, it's not visual. It doesn't have all of these different psychic anchors that allow me to communicate.
Yes, it does. So
if we're going to be communicating in a society, we have to create a persona that to show each other, right? And an ego, to me, it's like the inner version of the persona, right? It's our inner persona. It's who we think we are while we're generating all of these behaviors. Therefore, yeah, if we want to get in touch with our soul, soul doesn't speak English. Soul doesn't know any of that. Soul doesn't know. Soul only knows this moment. Soul doesn't know about the past or the future. That's why I always tell people, to me, to touch the sacred, to get into the soul means to get into this moment. But then to communicate it to you, oh, now I need to get a persona and an ego and words and ideas and all kind of other things.
Okay, I'm going to challenge you on the soul, because I have specialty working with the soul and soul retrieval and soul connection and soul extension and all that. After you begin to do your spiritual work and you begin to connect with the soul and continue to merge with the soul begins to speak through you. The ego begins to not be there anymore unless you need it to be there and you want it, because sometimes as means as boundaries with some people that some people are just simply not going to get it. But when you begin to interact, to experience yourself from the level of the soul, presenting, not presenting because that's persona, but experiencing yourself from the level of the soul, interacting with the others from the level of the soul, everything shifts. Individuation is only 2 or 3 steps away. So even in my presentation on Sunday,
do you feel you maintain it 24/7? Do you feel you maintain an authentic interaction with your environment from the soul 24/7? I feel like I can only maintain that about
98% of the time for me. But I've done a lot of work.
Blessings.
I've done a lot of work, and I can help people do that work. But it's the most beautiful and most complete work that anybody can do, and that can happen in a short amount of time. In just short amount of time, you do your work on a soul level, which is, there's stages and there is a process. Ego begins to soften up. You use it when you need to use it. There's still forever is going to be some part of you that is dreaded self. Like, I dread exercising. Yeah, is that dreaded self, or is that I consume too much time in creating things so I can help others? Not quite sure. So the coin begins to be valid on both places, and paradoxes begin to be valid. So to present someone with a paradox that is valid, that exists at the same time, you're going to get a lot of resistance from a lot of people. But the beauty is that if you don't get resistance, then that begins to be your tribe, that begins to be your people. And also these people that might meet together might just want to reach out to you. And it's just, I can never bow enough to a person who comes to me and says, this is what I'm doing bad, I want to overcome this, help me. I bow to these people, not to the ones who tell me this is how you do it, and if you don't fast on Sunday or Friday and Wednesday, and if you don't do this, you're a sinner. No. So yeah. But one very interesting aspect of the soul that many are not maybe so aware of it is that when the soul begins to speak through you, will you just, I don't know, whatever percentage, there is a little bit of playfulness in it. The soul just wants to dance. What's that poem on Rumi, that when I reached the soul, I found myself naked and I went and danced in rain. I messed it up.
Yeah.
I messed it up so
If
bad.
it's Rumi, he's going to be about sex. It's going to be about religion and sex. I'll say that this is probably a challenge to what you're. I'd say that this is a challenge to you, maybe, Carmen. That what you're saying makes beautiful. It's a beautiful picture, and it's a wonderful thing. My concern is, my father was a minister, so who determines who speaks from the soul? Did Jim Jones speak from the soul?
No. Wait, no.
Wait. 1,000 people think he did. And did David Koresh?
That's manipulation.
But David Koresh, yeah, we see it as manipulation, but they saw it as somebody whose soul touched God, basically. And that's just two examples. I turn on one of my pet peeves. I turn on TV and I'll see, what's that guy's name? I can't think of his name. He's one of those ministers that owns 4 or 5 jets.
Joel
and he takes. I can't think of his name. He's from Fort Worth. What's his name? It'll come to me.
Okay, that's a negative guy, right? That's somebody who's done some bad things. It's someone who needs a lot of hypnotherapy to heal themselves.
Pardon me.
There was kitty cats.
Mm-hmm.
That's all right. Kitty cats are.
I told her to leave, so she decided to knock some stuff down, which I kind of knew was going to happen if I let her stay in here. But that's all right. We're all right.
Oh, you can grab her and bring on a camera.
Right.
Kitty cats need to be paid attention to. But no, I hear what you're saying, Randy. No, I don't know. I personally do not believe that the soul has a bad intention. The soul doesn't come to earth to hurt other people, to manipulate other people. Religion, again, I'm going to say that again, a lot of religion that puts you in a box. They say this is the rule, no other way, you're a sinner. They're not going to help you get in touch with your soul. There are specific techniques of the sacred, like Mircea Eliade calls it Inner-Alchemy. And there are ways, I teach way and I take clients into, I've been teaching this for how many years, how to soul retrieval, connect with the soul, connect with the soul extension. And it's just a matter of connecting with the divine even more and more and more. And our souls, do they have a bad intention coming in to incarnate on earth to go hurt other people? I would like to believe not. Why not? Because the earth as it is, everything is a battery, mostly on planet earth. Everything on planet earth is not a battery. Hopefully it's not. um, there are cycles in we have spring and summer and fall and winter. We as humans are a battery. Animals are a battery. Plants, they they flourish, they bring us fruits, and then they almost die in the winter, and then they come back alive. So there is plenty of destruction happening by itself anyway, that I don't believe that people need to come here to kill other people to create lesser battery. I think that is just the dark part of the psyche, as people need to manipulate and be in control. These people do not care to individuate. There is illnesses. These are psychopaths. These are sociopaths. These are severe narcissists that they deeply believe that they are doing right. And what's unfortunate is that a lot of these people have a lot of charisma. They're so charismatic that um, people that take onto them and believe that they have touched divinity, they are of lesser, um, more insecurities, and they want to believe in something. So they're not as strong in who they are. Yeah. So no, I don't believe that the soul comes here to an incarnated human to hurt other people. And
If I may say,
yeah,
Randy, it's a great question. There's also an easier, slightly more esoteric answer to that, which I'll have to say, like, at least in my world, my soul is a node in a universal consciousness. At the very soul level, there is no me and no you. Therefore, there are no soul level messages that would tell me to harm you. That's sort of like a soul believing in self destruction, which is the one thing they don't do. The only thing your soul is going to always do is make a choice that is most beneficial to the life of all the souls in contact with it. And therefore, from a soul level, evil doesn't usually spring. Almost all of that springs from somebody taking what is familiar, what feels easy, what feels like what they should do for the words of their soul. We can definitely easily create false senses of our own importance and the importance of our own comfort and ease in our heads, which can mislead us to think that we are warriors for God, even when we are doing perhaps even great
yes,
evil in the world.
yes. So that's, yeah. So
That
those
reminds
people,
me of the. I'm sorry, Carmen. I was going to say that reminds me of the Ho'oponopono prayer. Are y'all familiar with that?
Hoponopono,
Yeah, I was just
Hoponopono.
reading. Well, that's I don't know. I've heard it pronounced the way I'm.
There's a big prayer for
Yeah,
it.
and I was just reading about it today because I was struggling with uh, how do I say that prayer for people who are evil? There's so many, you read about the things that are happening in the world, and I'm thinking, how do I say, uh, please forgive me, thank you, please forgive me, I'm sorry, uh, thank you, I
Is it
love
okay
you.
if I say it?
How do I
I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you.
So how would I say that to somebody who's beheaded a child? And the answer I got as I was looking into it was exactly what you were saying, Adam. I guess. I mean, it was. I think it's if I'm hearing it right, and what you're saying too, Carmen, and is that there's a underlying belief that the soul will not produce that level of evil, our real, true, deep down soul. So it's interesting stuff.
That
Correct.
guy
And
who cut the head off of that child is an eternal soul. He is part and parcel of this universe and this deity. I'm kind of an omnist, that is to say, God literally is the universe. And so even though I may hate what he did, there's a difference between his person, which is ever deserving of respect as an eternal soul, and his action, which I can deplore and speak against. But I can't, but the growth comes when you say, no, no, woo, that action makes me want to hate him, because that would be the easy response. But the growth response is to face that part of my shadow, to bring it back to Jung, and say, no, I love you. Let's not behead children, and worry about the action rather than the person. And that's the thing that's actually bothered me about the news a lot lately, is so much demonization of Palestinians. And I want to scream, because Hamas is only 1% of the Gaza Strip's population. And I'm like, there's 20,000 Hamas people in the Gaza Strip. You can't just bomb people and kill millions of innocent people because there's 20,000 guys you hate. So I've been having this argument with folks online too, and that's why I try to get away from it.
I can't imagine.
Upsets me.
That's a shock. I'm shocked that people would argue about that.
Well, it's the sort of thing. They're all like, oh, well, Israel is justified to drop bombs. I'm like, slow your roll. There's only 20,000 people there of 2.5 million. It's less than 1% of the population are actually even in the group that they're targeting.
I'm being very sarcastic. You have to excuse me. But
I know, but I'm saying, like, it drives me nuts. So I gotta say, like, that's been one that's driven me over the edge recently. So I've been like, oh no, don't get your heart involved with that, brother.
Let me, as you guys were talking, something else came to me about the soul. So let's suppose here's this person that is just a sociopath, a psychopath, highly severe narcissistic, that is hurting other people. Let's assume that his soul supposed to take him through lesson to which he's going to develop into something really wonderful and really bad, but somehow, okay, something else just came back to me. What if these people they were hurt so deeply and they cannot forgive and they cannot get over it, that they end up hurting other just to find some sort of resolve between them? That's one possibility. From a soul perspective, if the soul has an intention for this person to go through something rather extreme, I don't believe the soul it's their purpose for this person to go kill another person, although they are supposed to experience something difficult, very, very difficult, because of so many reasons. And because of their life journey as a soul, the soul journey through their physical body is difficult. Maybe they cannot handle this difficulty, and then they rebel against it, and they resort to those kind of things. So these are a few theories that I can present, that it could kind of make sense, so we can understand it somehow from both from the soul level and mental health level as well.
Well, I don't think that's what I say. I mean, the behavior is several steps removed from the soul. So when you talk about all of the things that have happened to him and his own trauma and his own reactions to trauma, that's still all mind stuff.
Yes and no. Okay, Adam, yes and no. There is new information about the soul having something that I call soul contracts. It's beautiful, beautiful work. It's very deep. It's not for everybody. And this soul contract information talks about coming here into this physical body to be something, not to do, not to learn lessons, but to be something. And being that might require being something very difficult, which is hard to sustain. And when that happens, the soul flees. That's why shamans, they do soul retrieval, because during trauma, parts of the soul flee. And then we do soul retrieval to bring those little pieces of the soul back to become whole. But according to this newer information that it's, I don't know if it's 20 years old, part of the evolution of consciousness, the soul, we have an intention, a specific intention made out of 13 different elements. Oh, we're getting deep into soul contracts. I love to talk about this, but we need a whole week, 8 hours a day talking about it. 13 elements to come in here to be that. It's complex. It redefines our vocabulary. It redefines what it means at a soul level to be peace, to be love, to be focus, to be innocence, placement, memory, and so on and so on. It's such a deep redefining of what these experiences mean at a higher level of creation. Beautiful. I love this work. I love this work. So when you're ready for this kind of work, give me a call. We'll get you going. And we're going to spend 14 weeks on it, at least 14 weeks on it. Did I mesmerize you?
Know anything about soul contracts. So I
Yeah,
got
you
nothing
do.
for you on that.
Everybody. It's we do that based on a natal chart. Because we just that's the way to get to that. Yes. So did I mesmerize you both?
No, I was going to say I got nothing for soul contracts. That's not something I know anything
Okay.
about. So that's why I don't know.
Yeah, me either.
I am wise enough to know when to shut up, and when I know nothing about it, that's like, you go ahead, tell me all about it.
Okay. Yeah.
I speak, I only know what I know. Then I got to learn what you know.
Yes. So you see, even doing this kind of work gets you closer to your sacredness, understanding the other side of this, understanding other people's side and spectrum of their sacredness and their formula, let's call it formula, composition, or whatever you want to call it, those 13 pieces that makes their experience be what it is. It's beautiful work. But again, I'm going to get back to. Go ahead, Randy.
Did Jung believe in God?
Of course he did. Jung insists that we do that work through the sacred. Jung wasn't a religious person. He respects religion, and he okay, I'm not going to go that route. Jung respects religion, but of course he believed in God. What he termed the collective unconscious is a form of manifestation of God, if we could say it like that. Not exactly in these words, but we could look at it like that. Because collective unconscious... I'm sorry?
Did he ever say that? Did he ever say that, though? That our collective unconscious was a form of God? I'm asking because I don't know.
I don't think he said those words, but I can find out what exactly he said. And
I'm just curious. You don't have to. It's just, that's academic. I was just kind of wondering if you did. Carmen, are you upset at the fact that your mentor, Milton Erickson, didn't believe in God? He was very non-spiritual.
It's interesting. Well, I understand him being upset with God, but he has accessed his soul, and he has accessed a very deep layer of his subconscious, and had accessed deeper, higher, whichever way you want to call it, of the sacredness and layers of creation, by him to be able to heal what he has healed, almost the impossible. He was paralyzed. right? So
I don't think he believed in God because I think he thought he was a better hypnotist than God could ever be. That was my thought. But of course, he didn't believe in God. God couldn't have competed. He was a better hypnotist.
okay, well, Randy finds things like this about
I
Erickson.
don't remember Milton talking that way, though I believe Milton Erickson was explicitly non-religious. So I
I
don't
am
know exactly how he phrased that, but I remember him at least talking about exactly that. Religion was unnecessary in his view.
okay. Well, being religious and spiritual, they're two different things.
Hmm.
Having the capacity to access the sacredness of who you are and being religious, two different things, right? So
I think a lot of people got to think that they got a religious experience when they went to see him back when he was alive. I mean, sure seemed
what
like it.
that's
How
I'm good with
religious?
them. I'm good with them. I'm sticking with what the intensives in the Ericksonian school taught us, that if people benefit from bringing in a higher power and a God, do it. Let it be. Don't interfere with it. Don't tell people what religion should be, what God is, what should be, what it shouldn't be. So if people believe in God, we work with that. If people don't believe in a superpower, there's still a greater intelligence. And
Yeah, yeah.
I have a way to bring that in and make it work even for those that are upset with God.
And more fundamentally, just historically, the scientific establishment of his day was so explicitly atheistic that even talking about God, he would have had to write a couple extra books just to justify the position. You know what I'm saying? So I
Yeah,
think
that's very true.
I'm trying to remember anything Ellerton said that was very like, no, God. And I think he just ignored the issue, is what I'm thinking about it, at least in
Okay,
my makeup.
okay. Let me add a perspective to it. If how many years ago we had the Son of God come to earth and healed so many people, and he was such a perfect alchemist that he turned water into wine. He woke up Lazarus from the dead. He healed so many blind people, and so on and so on. So when you have that happen on planet Earth, and then you go through such tragedy of not being able to use your body and call upon the power of God and the power of the Son of God, which has done miracles before, even after his resurrection, and that doesn't happen to you, that magical power of the Son of God, the magical healing power of the Son of God doesn't come into your body, would you not be upset? So a lot of people are upset with that. They are, it's not as much as salvation. As salvation, it's a big topic. I would like to use a different word. People want that kind of healing, that instantaneous healing. So they pray maybe 4 years, and it doesn't happen. Of course they're going to be upset with God. It's normal human nature. How long, we don't know. Some are going to be upset for longer, some for shorter. But sure enough, to have all of your faculties and not be able to use your physical body is treacherous.
Yeah, but Carmen, the little that I've read about, really read Erickson said, he felt that his polio was a blessing. He thought it was a gift because it made
Yes,
him more aware. Right? Remember that they talked about that in the intensive.
yes, yes,
He never thought of himself as crippled. He thought of it as. In fact, there was a question. Somebody said, "What is the greatest gift you've got?" or something. There was a question, something along the lines of, "What's the best thing that's ever happened to you?" or something. And his answer was polio. And it was
and
because
yes,
he
and
felt like it gave him a different perspective
yes,
that no one else could have, and an
correct,
advantage.
correct. And
Yeah,
without
yeah.
the polio, without the suffering that he went through, he he Ericksonian hypnotherapy wouldn't be, and we wouldn't have this very smooth permissive techniques to help people heal, to give permission to be who they are in the constructs that they are, with the beliefs that they are, with the values and beliefs that they are, but bring them to a better self. So the heaviness, all of this difficult, the gift, which is not an easy gift to carry, he gifted humanity with that, right? So let's take that and flip the coin to others that maybe they have been gifted with something similar, that they were not able to carry that heavy and ended up being psychopaths, sociopaths, psychopaths, or severely narcissistic. That could be. So to that aspect, we can say, I forgive your soul, if you cannot say it, because it's hard to comprehend to forgive someone who's killing children or anybody, right? But you can say, I forgive your soul, at least that I forgive your soul. It's hard.
Or does she not quite understand the point? Because
Huh?
that's what makes me wonder. Well, I take very seriously the symbolism of the crucifixion, but it makes me sad that a lot of Christians don't, because the entire idea is that God's will, not his will, be done. Is that to come to that point of, in order to come to be reborn, you have to come to the point of surrender. You have to say, no, it's not about whatever I want. It's not about whatever I've been praying for 4 years. And if she's been praying for 4 years and has not come to that realization, I'll say she needs to pray for 4 more. The realization is to give your soul up to God. And giving your soul up to God means that it is not up to you what results are produced. It's
Correct.
up to you what you're putting into it. And therefore,
Correct.
I say, prayer is interesting in that way. Because to me, the whole purpose of prayer is actually to teach us that God does not fulfill all of our prayers. It's not a transactional situation.
Correct.
It's actually entirely giving yourself up, surrender yourself 100%, and lo and behold, particularly feel gratitude for the universe you have, and lo and behold, God blesses you. But when you try to control God and tell God he's got to heal this hip right now, that
Correct.
doesn't usually go well. And that itself is an important lesson for how we should approach life.
You're correct, and I like your terminology as a transactional. So yes, we expect God and the Son of God to as a transaction, and you're correct. I mean, as it says that we all carry our cross. Surrender is the answer, but that's.
It's a hard one for me because the symbol is the cross, and all too often I feel like Christians don't think about it. Why do we symbolize the cross? Why is torture symbol as the symbol of God? And the symbol is just that it's at that final moment, it's surrender, giving yourself up to God.
Yeah,
and that to me is like the symbolism I feel like a lot of Christianity has lost in the
let me add
philosophy.
something. Also, the cross represents. Let me, Randy, you'll come after. I just a few words. The shamans, indigenous people, they have the 4 direction as a sign of a cross, which is all made of equal. We have the north and the south and the east of the west, and that creates a cross. So the cross itself also represents the same thing, the 4 directions. But Christians don't look at it like that. You find it in I've actually found this information not long ago in the liturgical not manual, but the book that the liturgy is under, and I was like, oh wow, Christians actually believe that. I didn't know that. So okay, Randy, you were going to say something.
Oh, I was just saying that's a good point Adam's making. That makes a lot of sense. That's a very interesting and very astute point that I don't want to Christian bash, but that's it's interesting because that aspect of it seems to have been lost, especially in the organized part of Christianity. In my experience, I was very active in the Christian church for 15 years, very active. And as in teaching Sunday school and doing the newsletter and singing in the choir and all that, and going to Sunday school parties and all that crap. and mowing the grass on Sundays.
That
Or
stuff is
Saturdays.
not crap, but go on, Randy. That stuff is important too.
But so yeah, I think that got lost. And the other thing is too, I mean, I one of the reasons I left Christianity was that uh, did I really? Not only do I want to give myself up, my soul up like that? I don't know. I didn't know if I did or not. But if we really believed that a human was raised from, I go beyond the cross. I went. It's like if we really believe that a human being could raise the dead, really raise the dead. I mean, Carmen, if you met somebody that you saw made a dead person alive and that was killed and came back 3 days later alive and said, I'm the son of God, wouldn't you drop everything and do exactly what he said? What, or he or she, be inclusive. Uh,
Uh,
wouldn't you, if they said, I mean, wouldn't you do exactly what
It's never she.
Jesus wanted?
They call her a witch.
uh, okay, Randy. Okay, Randy. That gets more complex. But
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to get off on that. We were talking about Jung, but anyway, yeah, I get sidetracked on it. But yeah, I think it's a
it's
real
okay.
good point about in terms of looking at ourselves and what we're willing to surrender, which is really the theme of what what we started off with. This is Jungian's shadow work was looking at ourselves, and that's easier said than done. Plain and simple.
Okay, let me make it simple. We look at the archetype of the warrior, and the warrior has in a form of a triangle, which is the basic archetypal in that's contained in a form. The warrior's shadow are the masochist and the sadist. So, how bad is it? Well, it depends on the circumstance. When a warrior goes to war, does he do it for himself or does he do it to protect other people? A country full of people, right? And when he goes to war, is the warrior going to be a sadist when he pulls the trigger against the enemy? Is he going to be a masochist when he's going to that treacherous war, being deprived of basic human, all of it? Is this bad? Right? He knows he's doing that. He's accepting that. What happens after he comes back from war, post-traumatic stress disorder, then we work to fix that as best as possible.
Harry Truman.
Fundamentally, I'm a warrior. Go on, man. Don't let me interrupt you.
I was just going to say Harry Truman. Harry Truman. Just real quickly, Harry Truman allowed the atom bomb to be dropped twice. He's a hero.
That's
ahead, Adam,
difficult. Yes, but this is how Second World War ended. So paradoxes
That's
exist. Yeah, paradoxes exist. They're difficult. And this conversation we can have privately, but I'm not gonna dig deep into this conversation as live because I may say some things that I might end up being crucified, not because I believe in it, because I don't necessarily believe in. I could understand why a paradox exists, but it doesn't mean I believe or I agree with it.
I know, but I mean, it's a lot deeper than that. We think about warrior archetype and we immediately go to soldiers or policemen or literal warriors who are literally fighting. But the warrior archetype is something we're all encountering every day. Anytime we're ready to fight, anytime we're going into the fray. And there are two things to watch out for. One of them is sadism and one of them is masochism. That's why they're in the shadow. And that is to say, am I going into this confrontation with the idea of defeating you? Not coming to a greater conclusion for both of us, but defeating the person, then you're actually coming at it from the idea of a sadist. If you're alternatively as well coming into the confrontation, waiting to be defeated, you're coming into it as a masochist. And the idea, in fact, of being a true warrior is that, those are not your attitude. You're trying to, in fact, advance your position. Protect is what you're really trying to do in that sense. And when you're protecting, but that's a very hard position to maintain, because we want to be an active warrior and go out there and fight the enemy.
Yes.
That's actually the inner sadism of the warrior within us that we have to kind of be more aware of when we're like there. The masochism is less common, but it actually becomes common because we become more cowed and more used to reacting with solely fear whenever we come out into a confrontational situation.
Yeah, you're right. But now that we are the subject, I would like to acknowledge and appreciate and give thanks to all of those soldiers that are fighting on the enemy line and behind the enemy line that are keeping us safe so we can sleep at night. There's so many people involved in that. And why do we have to fight so hard for peace? Oh, it's hard to swallow, but
that's a topic for another day.
Yes.
It's getting late.
Me fuming about defense contractors, but we're going to move on from that.
How did we get here? We're talking about
defense contractors are making half the world go round.
And shadow and individuation, but and Carl Jung teaching of Inner-Alchemy being complex, of a lot of...
there are those who go so far as to apply those alchemical principles to the relationships between nations as well. And you can think about, in fact, the way a lot of conflicts happen and conflicts are solved in alchemical work as the same way that they have to be solved in political work.
Okay, I believe you.
It's so true.
Psychology, though, we can stick to individuals. We're all good.
Yeah. So, Randy, how do you like this format?
Oh, good. I think it's a very good discussion. I don't know if anybody else in the world is going to get anything out of it, but I sure did. It's very interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a lot of interesting things that are interesting to me. And I definitely have gotten a different perspective on things tonight for sure. So that's
right, Randy. I too am a nerd and I'm interested in everything. It's good fun.
That's good. That's good. So and
I don't care if anybody else is not interested. I was interested, and that's what counts.
Yes.
I'm just teasing.
Yeah. I know. Good.
Randy, I see you say it says CHT. That's because you're a clinical hypnotherapist. You're also a clinician, I assume, since you mentioned you were supervising social work and whatnot.
Yeah, he is.
Licensed social worker. Yeah, licensed clinical social worker.
Licensed clinical social worker.
I've been that for 43 years.
But mostly doing counseling, I assume?
I did for about 20 years. And then the last 20 years have been on the case management side. I'm a certified case manager also. But I do more case management now because I'll be very transparent, 100% transparent. I just didn't think I was that good of a therapist. I have to say, I'm a much better hypnotist. But in terms of therapy, I did my best, but I just never felt like I was that good at it. So I veered away. So but I've gotten back into the hypnotism world. A much more.
But your hypnotherapy works.
Yeah. I'm much more secure with that.
And don't blame yourself, Randy. You just need to find the right hammer for that nail.
There you go.
Absolutely.
You were trying to pound that nail with a screwdriver, and then you finally found the right tool for the job.
But I admire you saying that, Randy, because right there you have worked through your shadow. Yeah, you've right there. You figure, well, it could be better over there. This is not for me. I'm gonna do this other thing which I'm better at, and I can provide more value. So that's admirable. All right, that's admirable because how many clinicians are there that they believe they know it all? You lost something.
Cat?
Kitty cat turned the lights off, huh?
Cat, turn the lights off.
Oh yeah, no,
Very talented.
And when I saw the whole little screen go black, I was like, okay, yeah.
yeah, no, yeah, no, yeah, Tessa
Oh,
used
are
to
you
be like,
done now? You're good?
oh,
Okay.
bring her over. Come on, bring her over. Yeah.
Zoe won't sit in my lap.
No, she won't.
If
Okay.
I pick Zoe up, you'll only hear like a lot of hissing and so forth. It'll be no good.
Okay.
She thinks she runs this place. I'm just here. I'm just a servant. We're all good.
They do. They do.
But the cats also have a lot
No
to teach
joke.
us. Both my cats are Zen masters. They are very good at teaching you to live in this moment.
Yes.
Focus on right now. Have you meditated today? They're always asking me that. They're great meditators, both my cats. I lay down to meditate. One of them is going to be over here. The other one's going to be over here every time.
Actually, yes, they like that. The same happened with my cats too. And even when they go into the deep healing sessions, they're always there. It's amazing. It's amazing.
I don't pet them when I meditate. When I meditate, I'm still. But they will still invariably come and sit on my body if I start meditating for more than about 5 minutes anywhere in the house.
Yes.
And it's all like, nope, I'd never pet them when I do this, but they still, they love the
They
energy.
do. They
wanna
do.
be right next to me.
They feel energy. Kitty cats, they're very sensitive to the energy around them, and only someone who meditates or does healing work or this kind of work can testify to that. Yeah, cats, dogs would not do that. They would bark. They want attention. You have to give it to them in that moment. But kitty
Right. I have a friend who does bunny yoga.
Uh-huh.
She actually teaches a class with rabbits, and the rabbits also seem to love the yoga.
Like goats yoga, like baby goats yoga.
Goat yoga, but she has 3 rabbits. So she brings her rabbits to yoga class, and it's also, I will be honest, they make great Instagram pictures of the rabbits hanging out with the yoga. Oh, it's cute. So it's great advertisement for her yoga studio. But I will say the rabbits, like cats, you can see they're so chill. People are sitting there in downward dog, rabbits just hopping along like nothing's happening. You're like,
oh, that's really cute.
Like that calm energy too.
That's really cute. Really, really cute. Yay.
That's about 8:40, Carmen.
All right, Randy.
We've been here for an hour and a half.
Yes. Randy, if you want to take off, take off. And
I'm going to head off. I got to go get ready for, I hate to say it, but I'm going to have to get ready for bed in a little bit.
Okay.
Thank y'all so much.
I really enjoyed it. Whenever you want to, Randy.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Randy.
Nice meeting you, Randy. Be well.
Okay. Bye-bye.
All right.
Are we done, Carmen?
No, me and you can still hang around because we're having some really good topics here.
Are you sure?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So when
you get me tired, man.
Not that tired. So what do you want to touch up on more? The soul or
actually I'm more curious. We've talked a little bit about the soul. Is that your primary like therapy that you're working with people on? Is these kind of soul journeys?
It's
or
not
is it more like, I guess, problem solution based?
It's not primary. It's
Learning has occurred. The cat now knows to turn the light off.
Yeah. All right.
And now I locked her out, so now she can't turn the light off again.
Okay.
But that was a beautiful example of how fast a cat can learn if they decide they're motivated to learn something.
Yes.
You say you can't train cats? You just watched it happen in 30 seconds.
I've trained cats, so no, you can train them to some degree. But no, soul work. I only make soul work.
Like it's like herding cats. Like it's so hard to train cats. I've had cats my whole life, and I've been like, cats are not that hard to train. They just have their own minds about things.
Correct. Yeah.
They're just not as mechanically trained as dogs. You have to train cats a little different way, but cats are actually really trainable. Or mine. Yeah. Like people wonder why my cats don't scratch everything up. I've fed my cats when they were kittens treats every time they clawed a specific comforter. So I got to replace that comforter every 2 years, but they don't claw the rest of my furniture because they learned that's the place. That's their claw sharpening comforter. So that's where they do. And I'm like, people are like, wait, what? You have all this furniture? No, yeah. There's no claw marks in my furniture because I trained my cats from birth. Luckily, my mom taught me that when I was a little kid.
Yeah. I get it.
Well, the fact that she figured out that to turn the light off again 30 seconds later blows me away. That's like, I'm like, Zoe is smart. My other cat, not so much. But God bless her, Zoe is sharp.
She is, because she wanted your attention. She knew what to do.
She is, though she's a child of trauma.
Oh.
For real, she was found the only one alive in the whole litter. Somebody poisoned her family.
Oh, poor
My ex-girlfriend was an animal rescuer. That is, say, the kids in her neighborhood knew that she would home animals for them.
Aww.
So she texted me at work one day, "You want a cat?" We had talked about possibly getting a cat. I was living alone at the time, and I was like, let me meet it. Mm-hmm. I met the cat. The cat liked me. Now, the funny thing about that is that cat has never been nice to anyone else except my girlfriend and me. And when that girlfriend was no longer in the picture, only me. My daughter has hung out with this cat once a week for her entire life since the cat was a kitten. And to this day, she will try to scratch.
No,
my daughter tries to pet her.
I understand.
Adam's the only one. The rest of you humans, nah, ain't happening.
Yeah.
My other cat is the exact opposite. Donald, anyone who walks in my house, if you sit down in my house, Donald will jump up in your lap. He will ask you to pet him. He's the friendliest cat on the planet. I have both the least and most friendly cats on the world. So
I have something similar. Okay, so I'll go back to your question. Soul work, I only make that available to people that are interested. Not everybody believes in spiritual work, and the kind of spiritual work I offer is very deep. And the results that I'm getting through that, it's mind-boggling. It's just completely mind-boggling. And everybody that I've done this work with, they say, you can't go back. That there's no turning back to the old ways. And every single person says that. And it's just, I'm just happy to do it. Yeah. But it's not for everybody. People have to be ready for that.
Is it religious in nature at all, or is this entirely about more of a?
No, it's
soul active?
No, it's not. It's not religious at all. It's just working with the sacred. It's what Mitchell Adler calls so well techniques of the sacred. It's archetypal, and it goes so deep into those layers of the onion that psychotherapy is going to take you 30 years to achieve what I'm achieving with that in a year. And I've done that work, and as I was attracted to, well, there were two things that really attracted me to it, cognitively attracted me to it. But there's more pieces to the puzzle. I've done that work, and as I was doing that work and I so enjoyed it, I saw the mechanism, the psychological mechanism, the impact that it makes through the psychological mechanism, and I just went, oh my God, this is deep. And it's beautiful, it's gentle, and it's so expansive. And there's no going back. Yeah. So I've done that work before I became a hypnotherapist. And that's the reason I became a hypnotherapist, because there wasn't in my cognitive plan for me to do that. But once I've done that work, and there was other work before that, of course, that it was just so expansing and so gentle and just so beautiful and deep and wide at the same time. But once I've done that, I said, I have to bring this out to people. I have to bring this out to people. So it's really, it's so beautiful. It's just beautiful. You just go over there and swim in consciousness and And when you begin to see, like Martin Seligman and Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, they talk about flow, being in flow, and they talk about the characteristics of the flow. They've studied all of the athletes, that what it takes to be in flow. You don't need all of that. It's just you can achieve flow because the some parts you redefine some parts. Um, there is a way of measure that is not linear and it's not logical. And then when you know how to measure something, you know that you've progressed. But all of that, your inner experience tells you where you're at. And then hence feel of feeling by choice comes into place, which is rather new, but it's also where the evolution of consciousness evolves. Because before was mindfulness, which is always all, like have your mind full, be aware of your thoughts, notice what you feel, but then you stop there, notice. A lot of people have gone further into that. And everybody talks about going to the feeling. Feel this, you have to feeling. Feeling is the secret. You want to manifest, feel. Well, how do I feel the feeling? So I stumbled upon this, and as soon as I done this work, and this is just golden, and I presented this work to some.
Soul contract work, you mean?
It's not a soul
Soul
contract, it's a
contract
soul
work.
work. Let's just call it soul merging work.
Yeah.
Soul contract is also very deep too. But the soul merging work, alchemy, which is Inner-Alchemy, I presented this through one guided session in the evening. I invited some, because I've studied so many different spiritual things, and I invited this particular teachers, and sure enough, they borrowed a technique and implemented in their work. And they've been teaching spirituality for 40 plus years. So they borrowed the technique from me.
You can always still learn good things, particularly when you're talking about like teaching. Often even if you understand something well, you encounter some way somebody else says it, or somebody else does an activity that you're like, oh, that teaches the concept so much more easily than just telling them about it, or expressing it. The great teacher leads the student to the doorway of their own knowledge, not to the doorway of the mansion of his knowledge. That's Gibran, but I probably misquoted him.
That's what we do with Ericksonian therapy as well. That's why we do it in our alchemy as well. Bring you to your realization for your resources to grow and achieve individuation. But fearfulness, this is where fearfulness came from. And so after I've done that, I wrote 2 books before that. I introduced this as thought feeling practices, and there were results. And I've been offering this in the spiritual circles and seeing the results there.
What's the relationship between the triangles and the feelfulness? Is that the
triangles
the
are part of it? It's as archetypes. It's a lot of archetypes, and in order to get to feel a feeling by choice and generate states of being, you will work with a triangle. Begin with a triangle, then you can spend more, and what I like to call a word triangle. And triplicates is also an important aspect of Jeff Zeig talks about triplicates in his evolutionary work. NLP probably talks about triplicates too, but having word triangles that can create a
kind of magical.
Yeah, but that creates a story. You choose 3 evocative words. One can be an evocator, one can be a descriptor, one can be a mover. It really doesn't matter, but they're all, you want to achieve something with it. They're not going to be negative. Negative, you choose a negative, we want to deconstruct. We want to construct, you begin with a triangle, because that will create a form. And even thoughts are thought forms. So when you have 2 lines, it's like things go up and down. They're not contained. It's like water goes all over. But when you put water into a container, it's contained. It has it. You can do something with it, right? So that's what we.
Did the triple words come from you, or was
That's
that
what I
another
learned
source?
it, and I've expanded on it drastically. It wasn't presented to me as word triangles. That's not what it was presented, but it was presented as feel the feeling. So I knew how to feel the feeling, and then
Okay, so the triangles was your way to implement an easy way that you could communicate
yes,
that
to
to people.
turn that into a linearity was very difficult. So first I went with the practices, and what's the word? It's not research, but after I provided this to enough number of people and gotten such feedback, I figured I have to do more. I have to do more. But to get to the point to write the Feelfulness book, and it took a lot of effort and a lot of different research to be able to put it in linear form. It's difficult, but now I was able to do this, and this is after 13 years, 12 years. But this book has been writing for many years. But the results I get with this with people, they're amazing. And this helps me, sacred geometry is involved, or geometry is involved, and this helps me help highly intellectual people. Just some elements that keeps their critical mind occupied while the subconscious um, is available for it's beautiful work. It's beautiful work. So you cannot join on Sunday, but I'll record this and make it available. I'm going to make it available to you, just a intro, just to get a idea. I don't know if it depends. It depends for people. Some people might.
Wait, on Sunday, what are you doing? You're
Yeah,
doing
yeah.
like a
I'm
group
doing an
session or something?
introductory after I offered an introductory at the conference. So some people sign up, and I'll do that on this Sunday, and I will record that and I'll make it available
Right,
because
right.
I'm
I remember you showed me that. I was like,
yeah,
unfortunately, I am working on
yeah,
Sundays, so
yeah.
not ideal for me. I gotta tell you, Carmen, I'm relatively tired. We should
Yes,
probably
yeah.
call it a
Let's
day.
call it a day. I'm relatively tired too. So this has been
So I'm gonna,
great. Thank you. And please join every time we do a podcast. I'll let you know. Usually every week, but not every week because other things interfere.
yeah, in fact, I will not be available
Oh,
next
wow.
week.
All right.
Next Wednesday,
All
right?
right.
I'm thinking right. It's today's the 20th. Wednesday the 25th. I'm going. So I took
Uh-huh.
Rich Guzzi's training. The first training is next week. I
All right.
start today. I will be in Nashville or Tennessee anyway, so I will not be around.
Wow.
So good luck,
For
enjoy,
how long?
but keep me in touch. I'd love to chat anytime.
All right. Very good. So how long are you going to be at this training? 2 days?
Yeah, it's 3 days. But
All
then
right.
I'm also going to go. I'm going to do a little hiking. I'm going to go see my daughter, and then come back to Chicago.
All
My
right.
daughter's at the University of Michigan, so I'm going to make a little triangle, drive around the country,
Good. Good.
learn some stage hypnosis, go do some hiking in Mammoth Cave National Park, and then go see my daughter before coming back here, hopefully by my birthday, which is on Sunday. So then it'll be all done.
Oh, happy birthday to you.
I know, I'm 50. What?
Oh, you're a baby. You're still a baby. It's a beautiful age to be.
There you go. Honestly,
Last,
no, I feel good about it. I am. I've always felt like I don't feel any worse today than I was at 20, with the exception of like, I got all the old injuries. But other than that, I'm in pretty good shape. So
yeah.
I'll take the knowledge and wisdom I've gained since then. I'm good being 50. But I am
Absolutely.
looking forward to going ahead and celebrate my 50th on November 5th. So then, yeah, I was going to say the following week, though, as far as I know, I should be back from vacation and around. So shoot me a message or whatever. Let me know what you're doing.
All right. All right. Very good. Thank you.
Thanks, Carmen. Have a great day.
Thank you. You too.